The White House is in a state of panic. Germany and Italy are demanding the return of nearly 2,000 tons of gold, worth approximately $245 billion, from the Federal Reserve Bank vault in New York. According to reports, all of the metal is set to be transported back to Europe in less than 2 months. The gold will be flown out of the United States on NATO aircraft. This is far from a routine banking operation. Germany and Italy are making it clear they no longer trust America to safeguard their gold. The reason? The tariff war launched by Donald Trump. Allies are turning into rivals, and partnership with the United States is increasingly seen as a liability. Germany and Italy are trying to protect themselves in case the US ceases to serve as the backbone of the global financial system. Something like this hasn't happened in nearly 80 years. Since the Second World War, the Federal Reserve vaults have been considered the most secure place on the planet. But that era appears to be coming to an end. If the gold truly leaves US soil, it could shake the entire global financial system. Interest rates on American debt could rise, the dollar could weaken, and millions of Americans could feel the real economic consequences. And the most alarming part, this may only be the beginning. If other countries follow Germany and Italy's lead, we could witness a historic shift in the global monetary order. Why is this happening now? Why Germany and Italy? And what role does Donald Trump play in all of this? Let's break it down. It often seems that US power rests on its wealth, technology, and natural resources. But in reality, America's financial dominance is not just built on what it owns, but on the trust others place in it. One of the most overlooked sources of that power lies deep beneath the streets of New York, the gold vault of the Federal Reserve Bank, which holds over 6,300 tons of gold on behalf of foreign central banks and international institutions. That's more than 507,000 gold bars worth over $460 billion. And most of that wealth doesn't belong to the US. These reserves are owned by more than 90 countries, many of which have stored their gold in the United States since the end of World War II. It's not just a matter of convenience, it's a matter of trust. And that trust has given America enormous strategic and financial leverage. By becoming the world's vault, the US secured its place at the heart of the global financial system, not just as a superpower, but as the guardian of others' wealth. America benefits not only from holding its own gold, but also from managing the assets of others. When foreign governments place their reserves in New York, they reaffirm the legitimacy of the US financial system. These assets provide indirect support for the dollar and enhance the liquidity of American markets. Transfers between countries can be done instantly, just by updating records within the Federal Reserve System. No physical movement required. This makes the US an irreplaceable hub for gold transactions and gives it unique insight into the financial behavior of other nations. In essence, America strengthens its influence not only through its own resources, but because other countries trust it to safeguard theirs. This silent guardianship has been a cornerstone of American soft power for decades. But suddenly, Germany and Italy have decided to pull out 1,930 tons of gold from the US. The plan is to use NATO military cargo planes, primarily IL-76 and C-17s, to move 50 to 60 tons of gold per week. If the schedule holds, all the metal will be back in Europe within 2 months. But the most alarming part is not that Germany and Italy are withdrawing their reserves, it's that they may just be the first. Behind closed doors in the European Union, quiet discussions are already underway in France, the Netherlands, Austria, and Belgium about doing the same. If the economic standoff with the United States escalates, these countries could also retrieve their reserves. They still hold hundreds of tons of gold in New York vaults, and although for decades this was considered the most secure option, even that trust is now beginning to crack. And Europe is not merely issuing threats. During the previous wave of American tariffs, France and the Netherlands already repatriated part of their gold. Now, with Trump once again raising tariffs on European steel, automobiles, and agricultural goods, European leaders increasingly see the United States not as an ally, but as a risk. Gold, which once symbolized transatlantic unity, is now becoming a tool of leverage, a form of protection, even a weapon. If Germany follows through with its plan, it would become the largest gold repatriation operation in modern history. Germany holds 3,352 tons of gold, more than 1,200 of which are still stored abroad. Italy has around 2,451 tons, with roughly 700 tons held outside the country. The last time Germany repatriated gold was between 2013 and 2017, when it quietly transported 300 tons from Paris and New York to Frankfurt. But this time is different. Now, the gold is being returned in the context of growing political tension between the United States and Europe, especially in trade. Since Trump returned to the White House, he has imposed massive tariffs on European countries. Cars, machinery, wine, everything has come under fire. The tariffs started at 10%, but by June, Trump was already speaking of possibly raising them to 50%. European manufacturers were outraged. But the issue is not just economic, it is about trust, or rather the collapse of it. European leaders are beginning to notice a disturbing pattern. Trump is willing to use the US economy, and even the dollar-based financial system itself, as a weapon against countries that do not fall in line. Now, Europe is asking a serious question. If he can weaponize trade to hurt us, what would stop him from using our gold reserves against us too? In Germany, politicians are demanding answers as to why more than 1,200 tons of German gold are still stored in US vaults. In Italy, officials are warning that keeping gold in the United States is like leaving your money with someone who might freeze it the moment you disagree. This is not mere paranoia. Europe saw it happen when the United States froze Russia's reserves after the war in Ukraine began. The world was shocked. Now even America's allies fear they could be next. Pressure on European central banks is mounting fast. Citizens, businesses, and politicians are all demanding to regain control over the continent's most vital financial asset. And it's not helping that confidence in the Federal Reserve's independence is also fading. Once viewed as apolitical, the US central bank could now come under pressure from Trump. What if he orders delays or even blocks the shipment of gold? What if he demands an audit? Or worse, freezes EU assets? This is no longer just fear, it is political reality. In Germany, the gold issue has become a major political debate. The right-wing Alternative for Germany party is calling for the full return of all the country's gold reserves. According to them, trusting the US or any foreign country to store national wealth is a sign of weakness. One of the party's leaders, Alice Weidel, says this is not just about money, it is a matter of national dignity and public trust. And voters seem to agree, especially amid worsening relations with America. Even Friedrich Merz, leader of the more moderate and traditionally pro-American Christian Democratic Union, has started to shift his tone. He once advocated for a strong alliance with the US, but now he is speaking of independence from Washington. As the AFG gains popularity and Trump threatens new tariffs, Friedrich Merz is proposing to use Germany's gold reserves as a tool for trade negotiations. In other words, he's signaling that this is no longer just about money, it's a political bargaining chip. But this kind of game is dangerous. If Merz demands the gold's return and follows through, the United States may retaliate economically. But if he backs down, he risks appearing weak. Either way, the risk is enormous. In Italy, the situation is similar, but even more fragile. Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni has long supported the idea of repatriating Italy's gold. Back in 2019, when she was in the opposition, she spoke out about it loudly and clearly. But now that she's in power, she understands the potential consequences. Trade tensions with the US are rising again, tariffs on steel and aluminum are back on the table, and Italy's economy is far too weak to endure another round of pressure from Washington. Meloni now faces a choice: honor her past promises or stay silent. If she demands the gold's return, it could provoke a serious conflict with the US. But if she stays quiet, her own supporters may accuse her of weakness and submission to American interests. If Germany and Italy really go through with this move, the Federal Reserve will feel the blow. The New York Fed would lose billions of dollars in foreign deposits. Technically, this is just a shift on a balance sheet, but in market terms, it's a signal. Financial markets don't respond to facts, they respond to fear. Such an outflow of gold could trigger a liquidity crunch in US money markets, disrupt short-term lending, and drive up borrowing costs. The Fed has tools, like the repo facility, But tools don't cure fear. When the image of reliability cracks, investors start to panic and ask a very rational question. If Germany and Italy no longer trust the Fed, why should we? And it doesn't stop there. The gold withdrawal could push interest rates higher in the United States. Germany and Italy are expected to sell around $18 billion in U.S. treasuries to fund gold transport and adjust their reserve structure. A sale of that size could drag down bond prices and drive yields up. Even a small increase in yields carries major consequences. The U.S. government already spends over $1 trillion a year just on interest payments. A slight rate increase could rapidly inflate that figure. The Congressional Budget Office projects that by 2026, interest costs could reach $1.2 trillion. But if the gold repatriation proceeds, that figure could arrive much sooner. Rising treasury yields directly affect mortgage rates. An increase of just 15 basis points could raise mortgage coupons by 20 to 25 basis points. That means a borrower with a $350,000 mortgage would pay an extra $30 a month. Across the country, that suppresses housing demand and could lead to a 5 to 6% drop in new construction projects by 2026. So what we're seeing is two European countries setting off a chain reaction that could cost the United States billions of dollars in additional debt and trigger market reverberations worldwide. It may look like a routine financial move, but in reality, it's a direct strike at America's status as the world's trusted financial vault. We may be entering a new kind of Cold War, where the weapons are not missiles, but money. And this time, gold is not just a reserve, it's a weapon. Because when trust collapses, it rarely comes back. And if other nations follow Germany and Italy, this could mark the beginning of a global revolt against the dollar. What started as the quiet transport of a few gold bars might end up rewriting the entire rulebook of international finance. To stay updated on whether Germany and Italy will follow through with their warning and what it could mean for the future of American power, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. See you in the next video.